Yeah.
We're so excited to have you. Robert Eckert.
I've done various things in my life. I've been a computer programmer, I was a lawyer, been a math teacher. Right now I still tutor some, although I'm mostly retired. I've always had an interest in history and linguistics and that sort of subject. And so you know, historical fiction was a good fit for me as far as writing. I've been writing now for, let's see, I started this book in 2015, so you know, it's been a while. Well, my book is about Rome just when it's starting to fall apart. Not the founding period, not when the barbarians are rampaging everywhere, just when the system is starting to crack apart. And I'm trying to be as realistic as possible about what it was like to live then, with little details about what people ate, how they dressed, what their houses were like, but especially about how they interacted with each other socially, which was in a very strict hierarchical society. You talked very politely with lots of deference to people of higher rank so that you showed that you knew your place in society and were content with it. And the people talked to each other in this very polite way because this is what keeps them from killing each other. And that's not working entirely anymore because the system is breaking down. So we have all these very nice, polite, mannered conversations, and then a sudden outburst of violence. And then it goes back to nice, polite, mannered conversation until the next outburst. Because what happens after the emperor is murdered is that there's no rules anymore. There had been rules before. It used to be, under the 5 good emperors, that the emperor adopted a likely young man as his successor. That's how 5 in a row lived to old age and died in bed. But then Marcus Aurelius adopted a guy who died of the plague, and he had to leave the throne to his biological son, who was no good at it. And after he was murdered, there wasn't a successor, and there was no rules anymore. He'd gotten rid of most of the people who could have taken over. So this is what the first book is about, the year of 5 emperors, and there's all these people fighting for the throne, and there's no set way of deciding it. And eventually, of course, it gets decided by brute force. And then my second book, the Baths of Caracalla, is showing what the consequences of that are. Caracalla, he wasn't as crazy as a Caligula or a Nero, but he was more destructive, because the earlier bad emperors, they were only dangerous if you were in the capital, near the center of power. But you know, out in the provinces, the bureaucracy kept chugging along, and the Roman government functioned as if there was a sane emperor at the top. But under Caracalla, he would tour around the provinces, micromanaging everything and sometimes killing a bunch of people. And he just did terrible institutional damage. And this is when it started to slide toward the year of 6 emperors. I hope my series that I managed to write as far as getting to the year of 6 emperors, which is when, you know, there's just absolute civil war throughout the capital and throughout the provinces, and then a half century of absolute chaos. But the period that I'm talking about in the books that I've written so far is when this slide is just starting to set in. You can still see how the system was supposed to work, but it's not quite working anymore. And that's what I find fascinating about this particular little segment of the history. Well, I like, of course, to broaden the audience for my book and introduce more people to it, and maybe get some attention. I would like to be distributed in Europe. I think a lot of European countries, of course, have interest in Roman times and in what it has to say about our own times. Because when you look at Roman Empire, in ways it's very alien, and in ways it's suddenly very familiar. Okay, the military needs more money and the government doesn't have it, and so maybe the currency is debased, or maybe the government goes into debt. Does that ever happen nowadays? I mean, and the social interactions are very strained, but still people are looking for love and connections, and these things never change. Now, I would hope that more people see my book, read my book, enjoy my book. I'm proud of it. I think it's some very good writing. I wrote it because I enjoy that kind of stuff, and I hope that other people like it too. What I really want is for a film producer to say, this would be a great miniseries or movie or whatever. It was originally written with a cinematic presentation in mind. It was a somewhat of a reaction to Gladiator. I was watching it, and I said to my friends, I could write a better Roman story than this, and they said, well, then do it. So then I tried writing it as a screenplay, except I don't know anything about screenplays. And a friend in the business did me the great good favor of tearing it to shreds and saying why it didn't work, and saying, you really want to write a historical novel is what you want to do. So I wrote it as a novel, but I still think it's very cinematic. A lot of the scenes are meant to be visualized. I start off with a costume ball. I have trial scenes. I have battle scenes. I have a scene in the Colosseum. All of these things that are made for a visual medium. And I would really like somebody to come along and say, yeah, let's film this. Well, like I say, it's a very interesting study in institutional decay, which has a lot of relevance, I think, to the current period, where people all over the world are questioning the existing institutions, and in some places we see the institutions starting to crack and not function anymore, and so this is why that particular period it has some relevance, I think, to this day, and it's interesting to get a distant perspective, because like I say, it's all right. Aside from the things that are familiar, there's also things that are very alien, and that's interesting too. I try to cover how intensely superstitious the people were back then. They're always afraid of triggering ghosts. There's spirits everywhere. Every odd event is an omen. There's Christians, but not all of the Christians are the kind of Christian that we would recognize today. There's different kinds of Christians, and there's other religions going on too that didn't survive, and all of this makes for an interesting mix of the familiar and the strange in this period. I really did enjoy researching this period. The more I learned about it, the more fascinated I became by it. Well, I think the most difficult thing it was to find the voice of my characters. Now, there was a long gap between the five emperors and the baths of 𝐂𝐞𝐫 because 𝐂𝐞𝐫 is such a dark figure. You know, it was very hard to write about him. I wanted to make him understandable, not likable necessarily, because he's this mass murderous, awful person. But I wanted to make it understandable how he was raised and why he turned out the way that he did. You know, somebody being raised from childhood to be the supreme ruler of the world, that's not psychologically healthy, and it was very warping to him, and I wanted to make that understandable, and so it was very difficult to find his voice, you know, to be able to depict him in a way that was realistic. Now, Five Emperors, this was a different thing. I started off with sort of an outline. You know, I'm going to go through the events, and then it just kept growing and growing. You know, I made this rule that any character who was known to a character with a name had to have a name and a backstory, even if I didn't use all the backstory. And so, you know, so I bring in this character, and then that meant that I needed a couple other characters, and so it ballooned into this giant book sort of naturally. But 𝐂𝐫 was a lot harder to write just to get started. Now once I got it, once I understood who 𝐂𝐫 is, then I could write it. You know, but it was very difficult to get his voice.
So there was a lot of research.
Yes. Just to get into the headspace. Now I'm writing a further book now, the Dangling Crown, about the emperors who succeed 𝐂𝐫, who are even stranger. Is a pair of cousins, one of the teenagers, you know, just kids placed on the supreme throne. One of them is this sexually flamboyant megalomaniac, and the other is this nerdish, bookish kid who studies the classics. And these are also very difficult characters to get into the head of. And so it's going kind of slowly, but I'm sure it'll pick up once I have their voice. I need to have their voice. What happens next?
That is a good question.
Yes. Yeah, if they're asking me that, then they're ready to buy my next book, right? I hope you enjoy the book. I've really put my heart and soul into it, and I'm proud of the work, and I hope it's enjoyable too. You have to let the characters speak to you. That's what I found, is that once I get to know my characters, you know, if I don't know what's going to happen next, I can sort of ask in my head, okay, well, what would he do? You know, and if you have characters, the story will make sense. Okay, the story will not make sense if you're just trying to move your characters from place to place, plot point to plot point. The characters have to be human. They have to be living creatures. That's what you need to establish first and foremost. At least that's been my experience. What I would like to say is that cover for Baths of 𝐂𝐫, I really like the job you did on that. Now my cover for Five Emperors, that was me just not having any money, and so I threw together the five wreaths. That's the best I could do. But I really did like the job that you did on Caracalla. That bust of him, it really shows. This is how he wanted to be seen. You know, it's not the pose that you find in the prior emperors. He's got this scowl on his face because he wants everybody to know that he's a mean bastard. That's how he portrays himself, and it's really captured very nicely.